One guy's seen it, the other guy hasn't. First guy's gonna tell the second guy all about it while they both get drunk.
All right, welcome to yet another episode of One Guy's Seen It, the only podcast where one guy has seen the movie, the other guy has not seen the movie, and the first guy is going to try to convince the second guy to see the movie. And if he succeeds, they will take a break, watch the movie, come back, nerd out about the movie, and decide how many beers you need to enjoy the movie, all while getting progressively more inebriated themselves, because that is what they choose to do with their brain power. Without any further ado or rigmarole or hoopla or ballyhoo, let's get into it. Sumner, give me the skinny.
That was so fucking stupid.
Oh, come on. Look, I don't have the technical know-how to throw a bunch of reverb and delays and shit, so I just got to do everything old school, manual.
People have to know that this is a DIY project. We don't have any producers or ad revenue or anything like that.
Dude, no. Now that the idea is there, I'm actually gonna go in and post and add a shit ton of reverb, like cave reverb or something. Brain power. It's gonna be awesome.
You should add it in just for the rest of the podcast, so we just reverb the whole time.
The rest of the podcast, we're just in a giant church cathedral.
I'm gonna start when I start saying something I'm really passionate about. I'm just gonna say beforehand, hey, edit reverb into this, or I'm gonna give you notes on how to edit it later.
Recording live from a mausoleum. This is One Guy's Seen It.
On top of Mount St. Helens.
Yeah. Wait, what's the Catholic super town, the church super town where the Pope lives? What is it?
The Vatican.
What's the name of it? The Vatican. Live from the Vatican. It's One Guy's Seen It.
Wow, thanks, Your Holiness. It's great to be here.
What movie would His Holiness have us watch?
Damn it!
All I can think of is Tropic Thunder, the fake movie that
Robert Downey Jr. said.
Yes, yeah, like with Tobey Maguire. They're gay monks.
Yeah. God, what's the name of that movie? Oh, it's gonna kill me. But it's it's all of Robert Downey Jr.'s fake awards, all his Academy Awards, and then Tobey Maguire's best kiss of the MTV's best kiss of the year.
MTV's best kiss. To this day I can't believe Toby did that. That was so. I liked him so much more after that.
Yeah. I just saw him in, have you heard of this movie called Babylon with Margot Robbie and Brad Pitt? It came out
Babylon
a year or two ago, maybe.
Is it like an action movie?
No, it's it's like an epic movie about 20s Hollywood.
Huh.
And it's just about the process of making movies, and then these people get famous, and it's the rise of stardom in the 20s, and then how things transfer to talkies, and how some people can cope and some people can't, and yeah, it's a crazy fucking movie, but he's got a part in it where he's this crazy gangster guy, and one of the main characters ends up at his house, and he just he basically takes him on this whirlwind of crazy excess. It's hard to explain, but he's so fucking funny. He's just so weird in it, and it made me happy to see him in something.
Tobey Maguire playing a gangster?
Yeah, but he's not like a gangster. He's pale, and he looks like he's in the throes of alcoholism. He's really pale and shriveled and scary looking. He's got really fucked up teeth.
Yeah, that's more than enough reason for me to see this.
Yeah, I didn't care for the movie, but I enjoyed seeing him. That was my favorite part.
That's awesome.
But actually, that kind of segues into the movie I picked today.
Really?
Yeah, unintentional, or maybe intentional. I don't know. Whatever makes me sound smarter.
You sound pretty smart to me, buddy.
Thanks. Oh, thanks. Anyway, what are you drinking first? That's just cordials.
Well, as you know, I have recently awoken.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I know.
I'm doing another weird combination of whatever's left of that Chardonnay and a Monster Energy. I'm gonna die. Like, I can't keep living like this.
Yeah, I've been on well, I say heavy meds the last couple days, but I've been getting over a cold. Like, I think it started like during our last episode a little bit, and then I was just fucking sick for like 3 days. So I've been rocking Dayquil and NyQuil like for the last like 4 days. So I've been feeling pretty good.
Both quills.
Both quills.
You've been on the quill.
Yeah, I could like barely talk at one point. I was just like so
Damn.
stuffed up.
Man, it's just because I guess the weather's changing pretty quickly there right now, right?
Yeah, it's dropped from, it was kind of like in the 80s, 90s. Now it's like 50s, 60s, like 70s during the day.
So nice.
Yeah. What is it there? I mean, last I checked,
I
it was
think
like
your
on
body's
fire.
just not. Yeah, well, yeah, pretty much always. But I think your body's probably just not acclimated to that quick change. Here, Texas, man, it's just shoving a huge weather-sized dick up your butt all the time. We had maybe a couple of days where it didn't get hotter than 90.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and it really there were like a couple hour stretches where you'd go outside and be like, oh my god, it's starting to feel different. Like I can stand out here for 5 minutes without passing out. But then very quick, I think we got like 2 days of that, and then it immediately was back over 90 again. In fact, I don't know that we ever actually dropped below 90. I think right now we're at a state record for most consecutive days that have hit 90 degrees. Like it's a historical Texas record for hotness.
Yeah, I've never lived in I've only ever lived in Texas, so I'm just used to that by this point. So I guess it's kind of weird now that it's like normal, and I'm like, it feels like it's January in Texas.
Man, it's like however you feel about global warming or the causes of it, I'll tell you what, the globe is warming. That's my speech.
That was great. I'm sorry it was met with awkward silence. I thought there was more to what you were saying.
Nope, that was it. I don't understand what all the hullabaloo is about global warming. I get that it's people politicize it and, oh, well, the earth was this hot a billion years ago. It was hotter than this a billion years ago. And no, it's because of our carbon footprint and methane gases. And it's like, yeah, there are all kinds of reasons why it's getting hot. Bottom line is, it's getting hot. So fuck.
Fuck.
God damn it.
It's the heat death of the earth. We're all slowly dying.
Yes, we are. And speaking of which, that's funny. I didn't mean to interrupt your segue, but since we're talking about global warming, so I have I'm as a musician, I end up with all kinds of weird gigs to help pay the bills every once in a while.
Yeah.
And I got asked last week by Dell Computers to be a part of this. I don't know if it's like an annual conference that they're doing in Austin. I think it's a video conference, but they are hiring me to write. Basically, they have this 8-page script that they're doing this conference. I guess it's a bunch of high up members of the company that are doing this sustainability and reducing carbon emissions and carbon footprint. Like they're doing this performance, and they want me to write a song based on the script and perform it at the beginning and the end of the conference. And I gotta send them a demo today, and I'm stressed about it, man. You know how difficult? So here's what I've got. Where's my I gotta go search.
You get roped into these weird gigs where people want you to write a song for something, because if our listeners don't know, Jefferson is he wrote the official theme song to the Riverwalk in San Antonio.
Hey, yep.
And I think
Almost
it's still
famous.
the official. I mean, I'm assuming so.
Yeah, you know, it was kind of a bummer. I think they had all these plans to do stuff with it, like some really cool stuff with it. Like they were gonna put it on the river barges and in some of the restaurants and like souvenir shops, and I just don't think any of it ever happened. Which is fine. It was the thought that counts.
Yeah. And your payment was the just the ability to say that you wrote the Riverwalk theme song.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
more.
like, I was excited because they had me do all the morning shows, and it was cool to kind of be a part of, in some small, insignificant way, giving something back to the city I was raised in. And the song was cute, and it means more to me now that, my good buddy Daniel Sahad, who passed away recently, it was like one of the first songs he ever produced. So that makes it a little more meaningful to me, but it's still a jingle. It's still and it was funny too. Like I remember the director of the Riverwalk was trying to get us some press, and obviously like the local newspapers would be happy to write about it because it was like the tricentennial or whatever. And the one write-up we got in a local paper, I think it was the San Antonio Current, was like, I forget how the guy reviewed it, but it was not very positive. He was basically like, if you heard it come on the jukebox, you might sing along, but it's not winning any Grammys or so. I forget exactly what he said. It was like the most, it was hilarious. It was the best review I've ever had on a song.
Man, fuck that guy. I'm gonna look him up afterwards.
I mean, honestly, if I was him, I probably would have said the same thing.
Yeah, they don't know how much he went through to just fucking get that song out there.
It was a lot. It was a lot of work. But yeah, I mean, so the Riverwalk, and see, that's fine. Those are simple things to write about. But writing a song about sustainability, like with all the things that they're talking about in this fucking. Like it's been a struggle, like trying to make. It's like the chorus I've got like, reduce, reuse, recycle. It's our song. We sing it for the earth all day long. Dell's on a mission. Can't you see in 2023 to save this planet for you and for me? It's like they told me to keep it simple, and it's like I can't really start getting into specifics because a lot of the conference is about like certain products that they're renovating to make less wasteful. That's like, what am I going to say? Oh, the hydrophonic 3000 XLR is more fuel efficient. Like there's not really a way. Energy Star certified.
I would kill for such a specific lyrical song like that.
I'm going to send you what I have, but it's pretty bad.
Oh, I can't wait.
And I wouldn't be surprised if I send them the demo and I just get ghosted. But
yeah, I didn't even know Dell was still a company. I hope this doesn't come out and they hear it somehow, but I didn't even know they were still around.
Hey man, Dell computers are still banging.
Yeah. I thought they got like absorbed into Microsoft. Maybe they did. I have no idea, but
yeah, I don't know the hierarchy. I mean, I think they're still a really popular like like desktop monitor all in one. I mean, like I think especially for like corporate use, like I think a lot of companies still use Dell computers, and
yeah,
I don't know.
They're the ones that they can. What's that episode of The Office where Michael Scott gives all the kids like computer batteries or something like that?
Oh yeah, Scott's Tots, the worst episode.
Yeah, it was like the only thing he could afford to give them, but I was like, Dell would be the thing. It's like, here's your Dell computer.
Oh yeah. I hope my payment is just a computer bag for a computer that went out of production 15 years ago.
Wait, you're only giving us laptops? No. It's the computer battery. It'll help you.
It's the batteries for the computers.
You know what? I remember hating that episode because I think the first time I watched it, a buddy of mine was like, hey, we gotta throw this on, and he was like, you gotta get really high and we gotta watch this episode. I'm like, okay.
No. What? That is not a friend, Sumner. That is not a friend. Yeah. Who the fuck would ever say that?
We had just like gotten home from class or something, and he was like, just turn it on, and I'm like, okay. And like 10 minutes in, like I barely knew this guy. We had just like started hanging out, and I was so uncomfortable. I was like, why? I don't want to watch this anymore. But
Yeah, I think that dude needed to admit to you that he's a social terrorist.
he's like a masochist.
Yeah.
The pain
Anarchy.
pleases him. The pain of others pleases him. But yeah, I've grown to appreciate that episode more and more. Like when I think about it, it's hilarious, but when I watch it, it's awful.
There are so many, especially because we've been watching all the extended episodes on Peacock. They've got like the super fan episodes now.
Yeah.
And you understand why they cut so much out of so many of these episodes, because it's just the truly brutal, awkward parts. You can tell they got into kind of a rhythm, especially after that first season, where they were like, all right, we have to make this a little more palatable for everybody.
Yeah.
Move away a little bit from the British humor of it.
Yeah, see, those are my favorite episodes when it's just so painful. It's just it doesn't end, and then scenes just kind of peter out.
Yeah.
And I think that was like the charm of it, like early on, and then it became like, like I don't know, like a Friends kind of thing. It's funnier than Friends. I'll give it that. But
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how they play with Michael's character through the first and second season. It's like they realized, based on people's reactions to that first season, that he can't just be a full-on dick. He can't be David Brent. Like, he has to have an arc every episode. He has to be the ignoramus idiot boss, and then he has to do something just lovable enough at the end, just lovable and innocent enough that you don't hate him, so that you come back and watch the next week. Like, they figured it out. They get into a stride, like, midway through the second season.
yeah,
The lovable idiot.
and I think it's because like Steve Carell is so charismatic, like they couldn't like avoid it forever. Like that's like his biggest strength as an actor.
Yeah.
Just being
And they probably
likable.
gave him a lot more like improvisational leeway.
And that's a funny thing too. Like even when he's being like the biggest asshole, he's somehow still likable. And I think that's just Steve Carell's charm. He's just a way of doing that.
Yeah, he's one of my faves for sure. But anyway, I'm so sorry. I completely derailed your segue.
I was gonna say this turned into an Office Ladies podcast really quick.
Fuck it. Let's just be the office ladies, the office gentlemen,
Office dudes.
office dude bros. Okay. Give me some. Let me try to guess this shit. What do you got for me?
Well, I didn't want to give too much away, so I just gave like the themes and like the year it came out and all that stuff. But it is a silent film. So I'm
little
taking
change
back.
up.
Yeah, I'm busting out all the classics before Spooky Month because I've got some horror ones I'm excited about.
Ooh, yes. Is it a Charlie Chaplin movie?
No, maybe.
Come on, hit me. What do we got? What do we got?
It came out in 1936, and is one of the, biggest classics of all time. Like if you, like any Charlie Chaplin movie, this is like at the top of the heap. So I'll just go over some of the themes like it discusses in the movie. There are themes of, because it came out in 1936, so that's like pretty much the height of the Great Depression. And one of the things that's interesting about the time is like the talkies had already been around for like 8 or 9 years by this point.
Oh, I didn't realize that they were around that soon.
Yeah, so the first movie with sound was in 1927. It was called The Jazz Singer. It's kind of a shameful thing because there's some pretty unfortunate blackface thrown in there, but that was the first.
Of course.
Yeah, that was the first movie with sound, and then it kind of blew up from there and really became a thing. And then the evolution started happening, and by this time, like sound movies were pretty well established. But the only one who could really get away with still making a silent movie was Charlie Chaplin. So he
Because he was just such a massive star, right?
Yeah, he was still the biggest star in the world, even though sound movies have been around for a while, and they're bigger, like more. There's the Hollywood star system was starting to become a thing, so people knew leading ladies and leading guys. But he was like, okay, I'll do one more film and then I'm out. And then so this was supposed to be his last movie, and then the war happened, and he did this movie called The Great Dictator, which is probably one of his best movies too. But it was all in sound, and it was in response to Hitler. He was a big fan of Charlie Chaplin, and he even sported the mustache because of him, because he was such a big fan of Charlie Chaplin.
Yikes.
So, like, Charlie Chaplin was obviously appalled by that, so he made a movie, like, satirizing him and his whole, regime or whatever. And it's also a great movie. But Modern Times was this movie that came out right. I just told you the title, but I don't think you can guess.
Damn it, I was about to get it right. That was right there.
But this was really, like, of the times and of the era, so this is what he kind of wanted to leave audiences with. So I think this is probably his greatest silent. But anyway, so here's some of the themes. So unemployment is a big one, poverty, technology, improving day-to-day life, but also the dehumanizing effects of technology, including machines replacing people and workers, safety, and dignity in a large corporation. Some pretty big, heady themes for 1936.
Stuff that's still super resonant today. Interesting.
And I think it's even more relevant today. I mean, like, it's obviously dated because it's so old, but it's still, I think, it's relevant subject matter for today. And and it was technically the last conventional American silent film. They didn't make them anymore. People have made them since, like, as like a retro throwback thing, but this was the last one, like, seriously released in the United States.
Man, that's wild. I was kind of jealous too. I remember when Kaylee first started kind of coming over to hang out with us all the time. You and her could really go off on Chaplin movies because she was, I guess I forget what her major was at the time. I think it was electronic media, but she had a few, like, intro film classes, or at least, like, I don't remember. They were film related classes, and they were watching a bunch of early Chaplin stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember you guys riffing about it, and I felt so left out. So I'm excited to be just a little bit less left out.
Yeah, and I think Chaplin is probably the greatest, like, silent films. But, it's funny, like, I think people think about silent movies and they think, well, that's so old, it can't be relevant, or it can't be accessible to modern audiences. But there's something about the way that he frames jokes and the way that he frames just a scene. Like, it's all very clear and very entertaining. Like, I don't know what way to describe it, but, well, I guess we'll just have to watch it, and then we'll be able to talk about it more.
Like, we'll just have to watch it. Yeah. How would you compare Chaplin's fame at the peak of his fame? Is there anybody alive today that you could kind of compare it to? Was he just hands down the most famous person in the world?
Yeah. I mean, it'd be like, I think in some cases he was probably more famous than the president of the United States in, like, the 20s, like, bigger than Calvin Coolidge or whoever was president at the time.
And I mean, it was international fame, right? It was.
Oh yeah. And I think that was the biggest thing that he didn't want to sacrifice with silent movies, was that when you brought language into it and you started, like, speaking, it cut off such a huge part of your audience. But when it's silent, for the most part, without title screens, it connected with everybody on a very visceral and human level, and that's what he liked about it.
Maybe he was onto something, man. Maybe we're, with all these studios on strike, which I hear, by the way, apparently they've reached some kind of resolution, which is interesting. Or Writers Guild.
Yeah, they're at some crux of the whole thing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to get more details about that as they come out. But, man, maybe that's you've got all these people complaining about a lack of original IPs and all these remakes, and this movie's still not doing well in theaters. Maybe we are looking at the early stages of a shift back to silent film. Who knows?
You know what? I'd be all for it, but it's there's too many good ones, and they did crazy shit back in the day. I've watched so many documentaries about Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. Like, the shit that they were doing behind the scenes was, I'd say, well, Buster Keaton more than Charlie Chaplin, but death-defying to say the least. Like, safety was not really a concern of theirs back in the day. But they were like acrobats, though. The physical comedy side of things, they were very athletic, and they could move around and do pratfalls and do crazy things that I don't. I mean, unless you're talking about stuntmen today, I can't point to anybody else that's really can really do what they were doing.
Next level shit. Do I have a weird memory of like was Chaplin kind of was he kind of up to no good in his personal life? Do I have a memory of that?
Yeah, no, you're definitely right about that. He had a checkered history of dating women that he worked with, and also dating younger women, which was a big scandal at the time. So he's got a long history. He once claimed, which is I think is probably one of the most insane things. He claimed that he slept with over 10,000 women or something like that.
Proud of it.
And proud of it. Like a massive number that, I mean, like, maybe, but I mean, like, I don't know. I find it hard to believe. Like, even if you were the biggest, it would just have to be, there's no way you're keeping track of that in your head. That's just like a huge exaggeration. But, yeah, I mean, I think in personal life, he probably wasn't the most pleasant person, but his movies were very good.
Yeah, so we're going to, regardless of whatever I'm sure he's been canceled for by this point, we're going to appreciate the art, not the artist today on One Guy's Seen It. Sam, you ready to go watch this movie? Let's do this.
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll be back. Just a heads up, spoilers ahead, although you might not have anything to worry about because they will all be silent.
We're just not going to speak in the second part.
All right, we'll be back.
And we're back. Jeff, what'd you think of the movie?
That was good. That was a good intro.
I just passed it off to you immediately.
Yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't really. I don't even remember what you say in the intro part in the second half.
I think I just say we're back. We're back with One Guy's Seen It. I liked when you did it though. I liked it.
It feels new.
Yes. So we just watched Modern Times, a Charlie Chaplin film.
A Charlie Chaplin film.
I loved it. It was awesome. I have a couple of stupid like I guess like modus operandi questions. So like okay. Yeah. So this is the first silent film that I've watched in a while, and I know you said it's sort of toward the end of the era, and I'm curious, like, I guess there's certain choices that get made as far as what audio actually does make it through. Like, for instance, in the opening scene in the factory with the boss and the video, like the video boss, right? What's up with him having a voice there?
Yeah. Well, that was a thing with so like post like talkies, like in the late 20s. Charlie Chaplin made one film, I think he made The Circus, and then right after that he made City Lights, and one of his things was he had always composed his own scores for the films, and like one of the innovations of the like soundtrack being introduced was that he could have his score for every one of the films, and it wouldn't have to be played live at every viewing by like an orchestra. So that was like a big innovation for him, that he could have his own like specific score undertoning the movie. But the thing that came with that is like a lot of the jokes that he had could revolve around sound. So there were a couple of sound effect things that he threw in there, and City Lights, which came out I think 5 years before Modern Times, which was the only thing he had played with like gunshots and little things like that here and there to like add to the joke. But this was the first time they'd ever used dialogue, and I think with the boss at the beginning of the movie, it's really to highlight that overarching like big brother is watching you and is like, you know, like a godlike figure over your life in the factory, like you have no agency whatsoever. And I mean, I could be wrong. I think it's a way to highlight that it's like two different worlds, really. Like the boss is, you know, get back to work and has this authoritative voice, and I think it's highlighted through his use of voice. I don't know why specifically. It was just because he seems to have the only dialogue for a majority of the film.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember any more dialogue other than I feel like Chaplin's big musical number at the end, which you can't even really call dialogue. I get the choice to have like singing in another language be in there because it's like, with music, nobody cares if everybody can understand it. Which was we'll save that. That scene was fucking amazing, but
yeah.
But yeah, dude. I mean, I love what I love about at least some of the few older movies like this that I've seen. There's like this thing that I noticed where there's always this one plot device that sort of keeps the whole movie going, and I loved that in this. The whole prison break that happens early was really just a plot device to get that note from the sheriff to put him in as many slapstick workplace situations as possible. Yeah. And I love that the whole story can sort of hinge on that one little plot point. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that was the funny thing. I never really thought about before, but it was the thing to kick off the rest of the movie. The reason he's in all these crazy jobs is because he's got this really good reference because he foiled a prison break at the prison. There's so much about this movie I want to talk about, and I was watching it and I was just like I was really sad because I was like, this is one of those movies that's just it's so fun to like want to talk about. That I'm just like, shit, I'll never be able to do this on the podcast again.
Wait, what do you mean?
I just think there's so much you can draw from, and like there's little things you notice each time that you see it, and there's a lot of special little moments, and but I think the thing overall is that even like 90 years later, 87 years later, it's still really funny. Like it's genuinely like a good movie all the way around. And I wanted to ask you a couple questions, just about so did you have a favorite scene in the movie, or was there like any moment that stood out to you?
There were so many great parts. Like I love the scene where he ingests an absolutely fatal amount of cocaine right before the prison break.
Yeah.
And it's there's like this cut, and it's like, meanwhile, outside there's trouble with the unemployed. It's all evil and ominous. Like the jumps back and forth between the blight on our society, the unemployed. Like,
yeah.
Dude, I mean, we really could start from the beginning, like, because I just took notes as I went along of things that I loved. Like,
yeah. There's so much. I think this is probably, and I want to go back and show you other Chaplin films maybe at some point, but this is probably his most like politically, like socially conscious movie, because I mean this takes place like right in the middle of the Great Depression, so, and like from the first scene, like you really get like it's like a critique on American culture at the time, industrial revolution, and social upheaval, and there's like a lot of elements that are touched on, but in a playful way that doesn't like detract from the humor of it, which is really really cool.
Like, I feel like to be as popular and funny as Chaplin was, like you really have to master every aspect of physical comedy in a silent film, right? Like when that's what's carrying it, like what you were talking about before we watched this, like realizing how athletic he is and the shit that he pulls off, like it's, I mean, yeah, he's like throwing his body on the line, I guess. So okay, so you know way more about Charlie Chaplin than I do. Like, what do you think people love so much about him? Like, he's this very unassuming, small-statured guy. Like, I mean, what's up with the oversized shoes? Like, fill me in here. Like, I know nothing.
Well, I think for the time, like, he was like even early on in his career, it was the everyman kind of thing. And I think the thing with the oversized pants and shoes and hat and everything is just like him being a vagabond, like just picking up things that he found along the way, not really caring if they fit or they were just clothes, like something that can shelter him from the the elements. And I think that's part of his charm too, is like, especially in the early movies, he's just someone who's wandering in and out of situations, and he's just a loner and a drifter, but he's always the little guy. He's always someone that's the underdog in every situation. So he can't really beat, the bigger burly dudes with force. He's got to outsmart them in some way, even if it's in a comedic way. So like that's his charm. I think he's got to find his way to either charm his way or outsmart his way out of a situation. And I think that's something that's connected with people for a long time. And I think it's translated definitely through cartoons. There's so much of the movie that you can point to early Looney Tunes, just either blatantly ripping off or taking inspiration from. And
I wonder too, because it seems like everything that he does is so, especially for the time period, I feel like a lot of it would be considered so unmanly, like unmasculine. And I wonder if it sort of worked because you've got women who don't really know any men like that who enjoy it, and then the men feel more manly while they're watching him be less manly, and like so everybody loves him. He makes everybody feel better about themselves.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's a very unthreatening kind of figure, I suppose. Like, and I think that's his like overall appeal, is that anybody can watch him, and he's not like a heartthrob, like good-looking, seductive kind of person. Like he's very goofy and outlandish, but he's endearing at the same time. Like he's very sweet and unassuming, and like that's like the nature of his character. And I think the
cartoon.
Yeah, he's just a cartoon, like in human form, but it's his most disarming quality too. Like even in his most like tense situations, he's able to diffuse it with either humor or being able to deflect it with something. And
I mean, is it a consistent thing that with every Charlie Chaplin movie, all it takes is really a few loose boards for any type of hilarity or complex situation to occur?
I mean, that's a good bulk of it, I'd say.
And I feel like with any movie I'm watching from the 20s or 30s, I really should keep a pie count, like how many pies that end up in people's faces. I wish I would have started one.
Yeah, it's and I think that too with the way that he plays with those elements, it always seems surprising because it takes place in that one shot, like when she brings him to the house, like in the middle of the movie, where she's like, I found this house like on the edge of the lake, and it's it's a fixer-upper, I think is what she says. And and every time he touches something in the house, like it either falls apart or it caves in on itself, and she has to like board it up. But I love that shot when he walks in and he just leans up against the wall, and the board falls slantedly like on his head like that. It's it's just the way it's played in the frame, like it's played in a wide shot, and you don't really know which part is going to come at you, and it's just the way it's played. It's like it's surprising in that moment because you don't know where it's going to come from.
I found it really interesting, the use of frame rate. Like I don't know how intentional it was because I don't know enough about it, but it seemed like they were using like frame rate and speed of the film in a lot of places to sort of determine the pacing. Like on the wider action shots are sped up, but it seemed like some of the close-ups were more of a normal speed. Was I imagining that? Is it all the same speed?
No. That was a big thing in silent movies. That was kind of a little before his time, though. That was more of a thing when the projection was hand cranked. So when you had cinematographers, like in the early days, like there was no set frame rate. They shot for 24 frames a second, but the hand is inconsistent, so sometimes it would be out of sync, and a lot of times the most consistent frame rate that they could get was 12 frames a second, but they would play it at 24 frames a second. So that's why some of those early films have that jumpy kind of quality, like everything seems really disjointed, like consistency wise with the frame rate. And by that time it had become more automated, but it had become a tool by that point. So I think directors like him who were more in touch with cinematography would use that to their advantage a lot. So in the scene with the bellows, the food matron or whatever they call it in the movie, he with the corn spinning in his face, he would
so good, dude. I was rolling. I was laughing my ass off.
Where it would like keep coming back up in his face and spinning like crazy, and he'd make these really crazy faces, and the guy is just standing next to him, like more concerned with the machine than him getting like losing his teeth or something.
Right.
Like that.
Yeah, the props were bananas. I'm really curious. I mean, it's like every machine, like they had to really build that machine. Like,
yeah,
it was functional. Like, it's impressive.
Yeah, the production design in this movie is really insane, and I think it definitely like a testament to how far he had come from his earlier films. But yeah, it's just such a good movie, like top to bottom.
I mean, even like the big gear scenes in the factories where the guys would get stuck, where he's going through the gears, like that's all. I mean, they built that shit, right? That's all set design. Like,
oh yeah. Like,
it was just mind blowing to me.
Yeah, everything with the big so that's one of the funny things early on with the the boss on the big like the big TV like around the place, just like keeping an eye on everybody. Like he goes to the bathroom to smoke a cigarette and he's in there. And I think I wrote down, I was like, it's just another day at Amazon headquarters or something like that.
Yep, nothing's changed.
But yeah, it's just all those little design choices were so it's like almost science fiction, like in the first part of it. Like the first 20 minutes or so.
That was my first thought
dystopian.
too. Yeah, and I was expecting the rest of the movie to sort of be a little sci-fi dystopian, like pushing the edges of what modern times could be. But it was really just that first scene, which was interesting.
Yeah, I think he's just commenting on the industrial, like where we're going with technology and how far are we going to push it. And little did he know how far it was going to go. But
yeah, man, I was to your point. I was really impressed with the cinematography and a lot of the editing. Like when they're in the back of the paddy wagon after he meets the girl. What is she called? The Gaiman or Gammon is a new term I've learned.
Yeah, I think Gaiman. I don't know how to say. Yeah, I saw that right now, and I was the homeless vagabond girl. Yeah, the homeless.
Yeah. How did it describe her? It was like the homeless child of the waterfront.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I wrote down a lot of the like the funnier like little
title cards.
Title cards. Yes, thank you.
It's interesting that this homeless vagabond of the waterfront somehow has perfectly white teeth, full makeup, curled hair.
Yeah, like, they're both beautiful, like compared to everybody else. And
I gotta say, okay, I know that the general consensus is Chaplin's characters are kind of these sweet, innocent, unassuming guys, and I don't know if it's just because this film has been remastered in very high definition and you can really see a lot of detail that you might not have been able to see when it was originally released, but it was so obvious to me how much older he was than her. Like it really seemed like he was close to twice her age, and I know it was a different time, but from the beginning, like their whole courtship just felt creepy to me. I don't know why. I was just so creeped out by him. I was like, I'm pretty sure she's just using him. Like,
yeah. I mean, like I think too that's probably one of the things that for like a modern audience it doesn't age as well.
Sure.
But
I mean, I'm nitpicking.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I think the thing too is like he was such a big star at the time. It's just like that was just kind of like the nature. I mean, this still happens today, like the age disparity thing.
Yeah, it does. It does.
But,
And the whole reason I even brought it up, but I was just talking about the scene where they're in the back of the paddy wagon when they first, after the whole bread stealing situation, and they're in the back, and there's the shot of them in the back of the truck, and it's clearly like they've got the projector on the set behind with footage of the road moving, and they fall out of the back. And then in the continuity was really impressive. Like they fall out, and you see in the footage behind it, you see people land on the street, and then it cuts. I was like, damn, I've seen modern movies do that way worse. Like, it was really impressive.
You know, he was, for his time, I mean, I think even still now, he is one of the most notorious, like, directors like Stanley Kubrick get accused of, doing too many takes. Like, I think he is the most notorious director for ever doing that in a movie.
Really?
And,
just too many fucking takes?
Well, I think the movie before called City Lights, there was a scene where the whole, like, I guess the end of the movie, like, he hands the girl a flower. Like, it's a very important scene in the movie, but they shot that one scene over 390 times, and like the production shut down in the middle of them doing that, and like they almost like recast the lead girl, and like it was like a whole thing. But he was such a big star that he could just, get away with doing that at the time. But yeah, he was I think the I guess the polite way to say it is he was definitely a control freak when it came to directing. And
I mean, I get it. You almost have to be, right? At that time, you got to be a visionary and have the grit and determination to pull that kind of shit off. Like, you asked, I think what my favorite scene was. It might be up there when he's like, imagine us in a home like this or whatever. That whole surreal scene where they're in the home and there's the cow right outside the door, and he taps it and it shoots the milk, and he's got the grapes hanging down right outside the door. It's just, it was perfect escapism for people watching that were probably thinking, damn, that steak looks really good right about now. Like, but I thought that scene was great. I really loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was funny too. I was reading up about it before we did this, and this was I think the biggest box office hit of 1936, and I think it grossed $8 million. It was a huge smash success.
Wow.
And yeah, so
did you adjust for inflation? What is that today?
1936, it's probably got to be like a couple $100 million, maybe. I don't know.
God, man. I was curious too. I don't know how many extras there were, or sort of how it was filmed. I was curious how they handled extras back then. Was it like, you're lucky to be in this film? Like, did they not tell people, or do you think everybody in every shot was a part of the movie? Like, it was hard to tell what was a set and what wasn't. Yeah,
and some of those big crowd sequences, I have no idea how they either orchestrated it, because it just seems like chaos. Like, I have no idea how you would go about staging that. I mean, like, as far as I know, the extras for that were probably working actors, and to be in a Charlie Chaplin film at that time was a very prestigious thing. So I don't think they would have just hired anybody off the street at that time.
Got it.
But yeah, as far as like staging and how I have no clue. Yeah, it boggles my mind, because it just seems like utter, like I kind of like, lose the thought of it like being a movie at that point. It just seems like it's actually happening, which is really a testament to his directing, I guess.
Yeah, it's impressive. You talked about, like, I guess you seeing it another time, just seeing details that you would. One of the things I really love about watching older movies is some of the details on, like, signage in storefronts and shit like that. And there's one scene where they're I guess it's shortly after she stole the bread, and he breaks into this like cafeteria to try to get arrested, get the attention off of her or whatever.
Yeah,
and
which
the
is one of my
place that he
favorite
goes
bits
into,
of the movie.
Yeah, it was so good. But that it's a cafeteria for it's a cafeteria, and then on the window it says tables for ladies. So was
Yeah.
that like a restaurant just for women? Like I thought that's what it seemed like.
Yeah, I thought that too. I was like, when he walked in, it was like tables just for ladies. He just he was like anything to get him arrested at that point. And I guess it like a soup kitchen for women at the time. Actually, one of my favorite bits of that is when he goes to the front and like, you know, tells the police officer standing outside, it's like, hey, I'm about to pay. Come in and watch me. And he's like, oh, I can't pay. And then he takes him and like gets, and like I think in most directors that would be the end of the scene, but then they walk outside and then he's just standing there waiting for the paddy wagon to show up, and then he goes to like the newsstand and buys a cigar. He's like, well, I'm going to jail anyway, and just starts lighting up a cigar in front of the cop.
Dude. It made
and
me
like gives
so
it to like a 10-year-old kid.
Yes. It made me jealous of a time like that where there were cigar stands and you would just buy a cigar and the guy would light it with a match. Like that show was so cool.
Yeah, just a very different time. But I do want to go back to the first scene in the movie because I think it's the most famous scene. It's one the movie is most well known for. And I think the conveyor belt scene where he's doing the wrenches with the lug nuts, and then like they're the guys behind them that have to like pound. Like it's not clear what they're doing. Like it doesn't really matter, but they're just like he's like screwing and then they're pound, and then it's just like it goes down a hole. Like it doesn't really make sense what they're doing.
Right.
But they're just on this conveyor belt and they're just going back and forth, and then he it had been parodied in I Love Lucy episode. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I think I may have seen the episode because the whole thing felt very familiar to me.
Yeah, and it had been parodied hundreds of times. I think it was just one of those things that became commonplace later on. But that was like the catalyst for him going insane, basically, and being part of the machine. Which was really funny. The scene with him out on the sidewalk, I honestly was getting kind of David Lynch vibes, like Eraserhead vibes, when he was out on the sidewalk running into the cop. Because it's like, because it's a silent film, you still get the weird eeriness of that. The same thing that I kind of felt watching What's His Dick walk home from the factory. It Jack Nance
took me back. Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah, I feel like there's a very strong, like Chaplin-esque quality to the beginning of that movie. Like the scene you were talking about when we were watching Eraserhead, where he walks in the building and then goes in the elevator, and the elevators don't close immediately.
Yeah.
It just holds there for what feels like a minute. Like he's just standing there and nothing's happening, and then they just close slowly. Yeah,
pretty Chaplin-y.
Yeah. But yeah, God, there's so much to talk about. Well, I was gonna ask you too. So I know you haven't watched that many silent movies. Did it feel like it dragged, like it was a silent movie?
No. I think with any great. I just sound like such a fucking pretentious piece of shit, but I feel like with any great piece of art, like if you're absorbed in it long enough, you forget about any sort of like preconceived notions or expectations of what it's supposed to look or feel or sound like.
Right.
If it's good enough, if it's doing its job, which, obviously by this point, he was a master at keeping you entertained with, because you're so reliant on. That's what's so challenging to me about making a comedy like this is comedy with no dialogue. I mean, I know they can do the title cards, but comedy with no dialogue is all physical comedy, situational comedy. Like you have to be so creative in a way that I don't want to say is like a lost art now. Like I know you still have like the Dr. Doolittles and Norbits of the, or what, like there's still physical comedies that get popular, but I feel like far fewer, because I don't know, maybe people as comedy's gotten more complicated, more nuanced, and we now have 100 years of culture that is woven into what people think is funny, whereas at the time people, I don't want to say people were largely uneducated, but you're going to be way more successful with physical comedy because everybody can understand physical comedy. It doesn't exclude anyone, which is why I think it was so popular and also so difficult. And I can imagine that with as many movies as he was cranking out, like, because I haven't really seen any other Chaplin movies, I'm curious how many of these bits were sort of recycled or things that he did were recycled. What are your thoughts there?
Honestly,
was it
I feel
all
like
fresh?
Very few, yeah. I think he kept every movie very fresh. And
see, how hard must that be to do? It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's why he released a lot of shorts like in the late 1910s, and then he started making features, I think, in 1925. I think The Gold Rush was his first one, which I think we watched a bit of when we lived together.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. I also remember there being a house similar to the like trap house in this movie that was just as nonsensical.
Yeah, which it feels like a bit of a callback to that because it's like a big like wood house. But you know that's the interesting thing about this movie too, because in every one of his movies, he's like a vagabond. He's like kind of like a homeless drifter. Like he's just kind of has to find his way through each location. Like in the Gold Rush, he was in Alaska somehow, and like in the Great North and finding gold. And then like the next movie he did was the circus. Like he was just involved in the circus. Then the one before this was City Lights, and he was just in a big city. And then this one like is different from all those other ones because the first scene is him like in a job, like working in a factory, which is very uncharacteristic. Usually he's just wandering around and gets involved in something, but he's actually like in a situation where he's already like working in a factory, and then he goes insane, which I think is another reason like it's more of a pointed satire than anything else. He was very making a social statement without necessarily making one. It was very easy to make light of what that was at the time, which is
that's interesting.
The dehumanizing effect of the Industrial Revolution, which arguably it's still feeling the effects of.
Yeah, which reminds me, I thought it was interesting, right, that he uses the sheriff note to get all these other jobs, and then when she gets discovered dancing in the street for whatever reason that she was dancing, and the guy's, hey, she'd be good for the cafe because that's what people want while they're eating, a dancing lady. But he used the sheriff note to get all these other jobs. He doesn't use it at the cafe with her. Like she has to like vouch for him, and clearly the point was, this is his calling. They've both stumbled into their calling, and it took them not giving up and not getting down. And interesting. What's that John Adams quote where he's like, I work in politics so that my children can work in math and science so that their children can work in music and arts. It's like,
doing my part to make the whole thing better a little bit.
Yes.
It's a very hopeful message at the end of the movie because like even in the last scene there, like everything seems to be working out. Like his song goes over well, and like she's working at the club, and then the feds come to take her away, and then they have to run away, which is like the last 5 minutes of the movie, which is insane. And the last scene is them on the road, and she's like, I don't know if I can go on, like, and he's just basically like, you have to, that's like the whole point of life, like you can't let it get you down. And it was a very hopeful message. Like has a way of making you feel uplifted even in the worst kinds of circumstances.
Yeah, I needed that today. I needed some Charlie in my life today. I feel uplifted.
Yeah, and there's a couple of the title cards I wanted to talk about. I think you mentioned
let's do it.
I think you mentioned it earlier when you were talking about the cocaine scene with the shifty like small mustachioed man at the prison. And then the guys come, and then the title screen is searching for smuggled nose powder in quotations.
Smuggled nose powder.
Which I love. That's a great.
Yeah, nobody knew what was in that shit back then, you know?
Which I love, too, because, like, I think the impression of silent films or Charlie Chaplin movies, they're, like, stuffy, boring, not that funny, silent movies. Like, from a bygone era, like, they're not relevant.
Right.
And then there's a scene of him getting high on cocaine and, like, thwarting robbers, you know? Like, I could very easily see that be a scene in a movie taking place today, you know, just in a different context.
Oh, yeah.
Just that
for
premise.
sure.
And then the funny thing is, like, that scene happens, and then the next scene, because the girl is like stealing bananas for her like sisters and her dad, and like they have this really they're like poverty-stricken family. And then the next scene is him like in like a union march for like workers' rights, and then he gets shot and killed in the middle of the movie.
No explanation. Yeah, I was very upset. I was like, I felt like I missed something. I rewound it and watched that scene twice. I was like, is there like a detail in one of the signs? Like, there was no reason for why he was killed. He was just in the middle of it and somebody shot. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and I think the thing too is like they're and you know, because Chaplin wanted this to be his last movie, and he had I think before the movie had started, he had fallen in love with his co-star, who is I think her name is Paulette Goddard.
Okay.
And I think she was 26 at the time, which was for Charlie Chaplin a much more appropriate age than what he'd been used to at that point.
Got it.
But they had fallen in love, and like he wanted this to be his last movie. So I think the thing with their characters was that they were both like vagabonds and tramps. Like, she was on the street and, you know, kind of slumming it like he was. And like for a majority of the films, like the woman had always been like too good for him in a sense. Like, she had always been like either from a wealthier status, or she was he sacrificed something to give to her, but they never been like on an equal playing field. And I think in this movie their connection was much more meant to be equal. Like, they were, you know, like they had like found each other kind of thing. And he wanted to like leave it off on that note. Like, he had actually found someone that was like a lasting relationship, because he was like, I'm never gonna make another movie again, I guess, and this is the end. So which was nice.
That's some interesting stuff.
And they were married for, I think, 6 or 7 years after this movie, which was nice. And then he met his next wife, I think she was 18 at the time. But they were married for like 35 years until he had died. So, you know, I don't know. Different time, I suppose.
Yeah, man. Different time.
Yeah, he's a very interesting fellow, to say the least. But yeah, there's a very weird scene in the jail too, where you remember when that woman comes in and she sits down, and then there's just a scene of like her stomach like gurgling.
Oh yeah, the gastritis. Yeah, it's the minister's wife.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't tell. I thought it was his stomach the whole time.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if it like goes back and forth or what the thing was, but apparently that was like a very personal joke to Charlie Chaplin, because he suffered from gastritis. Like, he had like stomach issues like all his life and suffered from that, so he just threw it in there.
Yeah, it was an interesting. It was kind of an out of nowhere scene. I remember being really interested in how they acquired the sounds, like what, like how they must have recorded those, because it was clearly like that's what your fucking stomach sounds like when it's going through shit. So I'm really curious how back in 1936 how they would have recorded that audio or gotten their hands on it. Yeah,
and I love too, like one of the few sound jokes that he has in the movie is just a stomach gurgling like that, and it's really awkward, and he's just trying to like, and then he turns on the radio and it's like, how you can prevent gastritis today, and he has to turn it off.
Yeah. I wonder how much that helped the sales of like indigestion medicine at the time. I bet it was like, oh, it's not shameful to go into a medicine store and buy medicine for gastritis. Charlie Chaplin has gastritis. We all have gastritis.
Yeah. Yeah, he normalized the issue.
Yeah. Wait. Okay. So is Janus Films his production company?
No, it's well, Janus is kind of like a subsect of Criterion. Like they're like the classic film distributors, I think.
Okay.
But
I was curious because that had me rolling already when it opens and it's Janus Films.
Janus,
all I could think was Hugh Janus.
No, that's at the front of like every like classic Criterion like re-release or remaster.
Got it.
They throw that at the front of every one of them.
Got it. Okay. Unrelated. Sorry.
But his film production company that he started in the 20s with I think D.W. Griffith and somebody else was United Artists, which it's still one of like the leading production companies out there. I don't know if I don't know if they've disbanded, but like all the way through the 90s and like early 2000s they were still going. So it was built around finding like talented independent artists and catering to that. So that's pretty cool. Yeah,
that's awesome. And we should do another Chaplin film in the future because I know you could talk about his life for hours.
Yeah, I'm very familiar, and I think The Great Dictator would be a really good one because it's a lot about World War II and a lot about taking down Hitler, which is a subject I think we have much fascination in.
Yes, I think that would be a blast to talk about. By the way, did you notice that Band of Brothers and The Pacific are both now on Netflix in their entirety? And
yes,
they are
I
in
did see
the
that.
top 10.
Yeah.
People are digging them.
Yeah, because they're fucking awesome. I gotta go back and rewatch them.
Yeah, I forgot how good The Pacific is. I think I've seen Band of Brothers all the way through like 8 times, but I think I had only watched The Pacific. No, you know what? You and I watched through it together. So I've seen it all the way through twice, I think, but still deserves another rewatch.
Yeah, I went back and rewatched The Pacific, and I loved it all the way through. It's like an amazing series because I think The Pacific gets touched on less because it's, I think the stuff in Europe is a lot more definitive. Like you're like, oh, we won, like we conquered Europe and defeated evil. But you look at Japan and it's dreary and depressing and like everybody comes home emotionally scarred and tortured. It's like a prelude to the Vietnam War in a lot of ways because there were no winners on either side. Like it was just devastating.
Yeah. And it was a lot more savage stuff. I mean, obviously all warfare is savage and horrible and brutal, but like the fighting I feel like was grittier in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think the Imperial Japanese like had very severe tactics and traps and situations that people were not really prepared for at the time. Like it was a much different kind of fighting than like Western people.
Yeah, classier battles. Classier European battles.
You stand up in a line and you all get shot like gentlemen. They're used to that. But
but we definitely got to do the Dictator. Or what is it? The
Great Dictator.
The Great Dictator, yeah. Not the Sacha Baron Cohen film. Please no.
Oh, the Dictator. We watched that the other day.
Was it any good? I don't think I ever had the guts to watch
it's terrible.
it. That's what I figured.
It's only worth it for Sacha Baron Cohen because he actually has a show on Showtime. I can't remember what it's called.
Diali G?
No. It was something he came out with recently.
Oh, okay.
What was it called? I say recently, with like in the last 6 years or so. What the fuck was it called? But it was really good. It was like in his Borat Bruno style.
Nice.
And he just gets there's this one of this senator. He gets to say the craziest shit because it's like you can tell this guy is just like hanging on by a thread, and he's just saying.
Oh, isn't it like, Giuliani?
Yeah, he gets.
Doesn't
Giuliani
he get him in a hotel room or something?
Well, that's in Borat too.
Oh yeah. That's the second Borat. Sorry.
Yeah, but in the show, like he gets like he's not a senator. He's like some like political official. I can't remember who he is, but he's just like some wacko dude, and he just gets him to say the N-word like over and over again with barely saying anything to him. And he's like,
"Oh no,
will you say the N-word?" He's like, "I meant Nicaragua," and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that."
what the fuck, man?
It was a surreal moment.
Well, I think we've gone heavily over our allotted time limit here. You got any final thoughts?
Yeah. Well, there's just only a couple things I want to talk about, and then we can get out of here.
Yeah.
Well, I did want to talk about so the scene where he gets a job as the night clerk at the mall.
Oh yeah, awesome part of the movie.
Where he's on the skates and he's doing like these acrobatic dances over like you know that like pit that like falls down like 3 flights of stairs or something, and like that whole sequence where he's just going like close to the edge blindfolded the whole time, and this great sequence where he's just really funny.
Yeah, he was pretty damn good on a pair of skates. I wonder if he did a lot of stuff with roller skates over the course of his career.
Yeah, I don't know, but that effect, you know, where you see the thing going down. I think a lot of people think it's like green screen, but it's actually all in camera effect.
Holy shit!
So they have the set, and then you know the little hole where like it's like danger, and then there's the bit of the fence that's like cut out and like you can like fall directly down. Yeah. So they have the scene set up, and then they have a giant like plate glass window, and then all that stuff, like, you know, you can see like the floors going down. It's just like a painted on effect on the window. So when it like pans back and forth, you can just see it's just like on the glass. Like, I'm not explaining this very well, but like.
No, but I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And
I was even blown away by the escalator scene when the guys are trying to shoot him and he can't stop moving. And I was curious how new escalators were at the time, because it looked pretty rudimentary. Like it almost looked like a set elevator or escalator. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if that was like a thing that Charlie Chaplin was like, this will be a thing in the future, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious. Or if they built it just for the set, like it had to have been pretty dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love the part where he's talking to her and they're talking about like building a home together. The one you were talking about, and they had that image of them, you know, being together in the house, and he sees her face and like has this moment where he's like, I'll do it, even if I'll get us a home, even if I have to work for it, which I think is a really funny line.
Even if I have to work for it. I wrote that down too. I was like, that's clearly a political statement here, social statement.
Yeah. There's so much little nuggets of political commentary in there that are so funny, and the part with the burglars at the end too is really interesting, because it like turns out that one of the guys robbing the store is the guy he worked with at the beginning of the movie. Yeah,
I recognized him immediately. I thought my first thought was like, they're just reusing actors. I was like, oh, sweet, it ties into the plot. Very, very, very good, very good, very well.
Yeah,
done.
and then his line, he's like, oh, we ain't burglars, we're hungry. I was like, yeah, that's some sick political commentary.
Boom, sick.
Yeah, great little moments like that. So, I guess the last little thing I wanted to talk about was so his singing at the end of the movie.
Fucking awesome. It wasn't really him singing, right?
No, it was. Yeah, it was him.
No way.
Yeah. Well, actually, he does all the scores for his movies. Well, which I think I mentioned before, but he he comes up with all the scores and everything. He's very, very musical, but he was like, the movie was billed as oh god, it was billed as the first movie where Charlie Chaplin talks in it, and that was like one of the big selling points in it.
Oh my god.
Talkies have been a thing for a while, and then it was like he's gonna have this big musical number in it, and so people get to hear his voice. But he was like, I don't want to take away the essence of, the Tramp, the character that I've created for all these years. So it's like, what can I do to bridge the gap? So when he's singing, like, he takes bits of like different foreign languages, but it doesn't mean anything. There is no like cohesiveness to what he's just different random words of different origins that he's just
No shit. I was curious if he was performing a classic song or if it was something he'd written.
No, he wrote the whole thing. Yeah, that was all original material.
Yeah, that makes that whole scene way more special to me. That's really cool.
Yeah. So it was a really, really cool moment. Yeah, and he's just riffing, saying bullshit.
But it all made
awesome.
sense.
Very punk rock statement. He's like, fuck you, I'm not talking. And then in The Great Dictator, he talks for real.
Man, that's got to be weird, too. I imagine he doesn't sound anything like I think he's going to sound.
You know what? And he's a fucking great actor, too. Like, it's kind of amazing. You think, like, a guy being a silent, movie star would, like, not be that great. He's pretty incredible in that movie. He's got a great monologue at the end of the movie.
I feel like you have to be to be able to sell, to be the focus of all of his own films and be able to sell that physical comedy. There's got to be a great actor in there. I remember having the thought that a lot of the people around him don't need to be as good because he's so commanding on screen.
Yeah.
I'm curious what that's like when all the actors he's acting with need to be good.
Yeah, it's something else. And there's a great scene where he and a guy that's playing like a pseudo version of Mussolini are just arguing, and it's fucking hilarious.
I'm ready. I'm so ready. This seemed like it absolutely deserved the classic status. I loved it all the way through. What do you? What's your rating?
Oh, I'd give it well, going based off of your scale for Dog Day Afternoon, I'm gonna give it a 0. I don't think you need any, but
a 0.
But I will say, when I had 3 beers and I laughed my fucking ass off like in almost every scene in this movie, so I think
again,
you're good
this is the inherent problem with our scale. It's like, how many beers do you need versus how many do you want? That's where that's the gray area, right? We gotta figure out how to.
That's the thing I like about a rating system, because I think people latch on to like the rating. It's like, Anthony Fantano, when he gives like a 10-star or 10 out of 10, people are like, oh, this must be the best album ever made. It's like, well, no, I mean, like, to me it is. But, make up your own mind. And I like that there's a gray area that's like, make up your own mind, figure out if you like it or not.
Yeah, fucking A. Okay, so you're going to give it 0 beers, but way more fun with a few beers.
Oh, yeah. It's a great time all the way around.
Yeah. I mean, I don't... This really, Sumner, I think, was the first silent movie that I've watched front to back.
Hell yeah.
Because of that, it was a new experience to me, and I was so focused on it that I loved it. I don't know that I'm going to go, like, seek out silent movies, especially because I feel like since this was his last and a big hurrah... I'm not saying I would be disappointed by others, but like, man, rating wise for me, I think I might give it, it might give it 1 beer. I feel like it would have been even better had I been drunker. Like, I wish I was able to keep up with you. I wish I'd had more, but I'm still going to give it 1, which I think might be, did I give Dog Day Afternoon no beers?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, you broke.
Yeah, okay, so not my lowest score.
Yeah, and that's okay. I think too, I think newer people coming into this movie will look at Chaplin and know the history of Chaplin a little better, and like look at him with like a certain apprehension and not be enveloped in his performance as much, which I think was my big thing early on when I was getting into Charlie Chaplin movies. And, and I think that's fair. I think that's one of the things. It's like, you look back at older stuff, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, and you got to realize where it comes from. And
right.
It's like an unfortunate reality of digesting older media, but I think as long as you're conscious of those things and you're willing to accept them as a reality, I don't think there's any problem having a good time with the work that was created. And,
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I think people have different opinions, but I can say that I don't know if I would ever have enjoyed meeting Charlie Chaplin, but I love all his movies very much.
Yeah, you can appreciate the art regardless of the artists. Yeah. That's a conversation for another day.
It's a tough debate, yeah, because I mean, like what do you consider
what's the
forgettable?
scale? Yeah, exactly.
And like, will you go back and watch old Cosby shows? Like, no, probably not. It's like it's a gray area, and it's different for every person.
But as far as appreciation for film history and
it's very
people
important.
that change the game and influence the medium, I think it's important.
Yeah, I'd argue if you went back to watch any old movies, it would have to be Chaplin movies, because you can see the genesis of a lot of things that we still look at as like film cohesiveness, know, and just in terms of physical comedy, action, just staging in general, like there's a lot of stuff that he practically invented. So there's a lot of value in what he did.
A pioneer of modern times.
Yeah. Hey. Very nice.
That's thank you. Just wrapping it all up with a nice, pretty little bow on top.
That was nice. Open it for Christmas.
Thanks. Well, you've been listening to One Guy's Seen It. My name is Jefferson.
My name is Sumner, and check out our UT Longhorn podcast coming out soon. In the next couple months.
It's called Horns Up, bitches.
We did spend about an hour before this movie talking about UT football and the SEC.
Yes. Just to punish you.
And it was quite enjoyable, actually. I enjoyed the conversation. I couldn't add much to it, but I enjoyed listening.
Hey, don't tempt me, man. You know I'll start a UT football podcast with you. You know I will.
Should we just inflate the end of this? Because I just want to hear you talk about UT football.
Nope. No. I have fucking shit to do that I don't want to do. You're a busy
man. I understand.
I'm a very busy man. I'm a very busy man. Well, follow us out on all. I think we have what? We're on episode. Is this episode 7 that we've done, or 8 now?
8,
or 9?
I think. Yeah.
Is it 8?
I think 8.
So
yeah.
we
maybe
have currently.
9. Shit. Yeah, it might be.
I
9.
think we've released 2 episodes so far. We've got 20 listeners all around the world right now.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Even there's one even in Japan.
That's Andy.
I don't know who that might be. We have a listener in Utah. So whoever you are out there in Utah.
Shit. Andy used to live in Utah too. She's traveling the world.
Yeah, so shout out to our Utah listener out there. Sumner's gonna hop on the social media here soon.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah,
we're gonna be cranking out some. We're gonna be slinging some tent.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get on that TikTok shit.
You take your talks, buddy.
Yeah, TikTok's fucking bullshit, man. It's fucking. God, go on about TikTok.
It's where the youth live. That reminds me, I read something today that fucking blew my mind. So apparently Gen Z and Gen Alpha, the 2 youngest generations out there in the world right now, are almost twice as likely to fall for an internet scam than baby boomers, than our grandparents, which completely blew my mind. And the article sort of explained it that millennials and zillennials or whatever. I think you're technically a zillennial, right on the cusp, right?
Oh, is that what they're calling it now? Zillennial?
Zillennial. Yeah, you and Kaylee are zillennials, and I'm technically right at the tail end of being full millennial. But the article talks about zillennials, millennials, and Gen X. So our parents all sort of grew up in the wild west of the internet, where you just knew that nothing was safe. Everything's going to give you a virus. Don't fucking click on anything, right? We're talking about early days of antivirus, before firewalls got really strong. And then these younger generations have grown up with mobile devices that are very secure, and many of them don't even know what a fucking computer virus is or how they would come across one, and they are way more likely to fall for these fucking scams, these like phishing scams and link scams, and like the Amazon, your package has been delivered, here's the link. Oh, and I didn't order this.
I almost fell for that the other day.
They're savage, man. They're using like fake links that they'll like build a website that looks exactly like the Amazon storefront and just use a different domain. And it's like, if you're not really paying attention, it's pretty easy to fall for that shit.
Well, I swear to God, I was waiting for a package from Amazon like a couple days ago, and then it was like, oh, your package has been like lost, and it said Japan in the thing, and I was like, oh shit, okay, that must be legit. And it was like a text. Well, when I immediately clicked on it, I was like, oh, this is a scam. What the fuck? That's so weird. It's so specific.
Yeah, and it blows my mind, because I always made the assumption that even when I was like in high school or even middle school, and we had computer class and we're doing Mavis Beacon typing and playing Lemmings and Minesweeper and whatever, right? Like, I always remember thinking, oh man, like the generation after me and the generation, like, I just imagine that generation being so much more internet literate and computer literate than we are, that it's shocking to me that it's gone the other direction. Like, I was seeing something, and maybe it was the same article that was like, a shocking percentage of college students, like new college students, don't know how to save a Word document on a computer.
What?
Yeah, like the kids that have grown up with because a lot of schools are using tablets for things because they're cheaper. They don't require as much processing power. So there's really cool interactive learning programs on tablets. Kids are growing up with smartphones. They're so used to touch screens that for a lot of these kids, there's not really a reason to own a laptop or do a whole lot with a desktop. And they get into college where they need one, and they're like, like basic file management, like creating folders, like shit that we just, like, it's like the first thing you learn how to do. File save as, like that kind of shit.
Yeah, I mean, like that's an interesting thing, because I think for kids now, it's like made to be easier for them, especially when they're like little kids, like tablets and like anything that like they can't fuck up really. And then when they get to a place where they're like, you're on your own, figure it out now, they're like, well, I mean, I didn't learn this in school. They were just like, here you go, like figure it out.
Yeah. And I guess really it's our generation it's our generation, the generation above us' fault, whose kids are falling for this shit, that like we just take that for granted. Like, we grew up with that being the reality, and you don't think to, I mean, I'm not letting that shit go. Like, I'm gonna fucking make sure my kids know what the fuck they're doing online. Like,
yeah. Well, I think we're like oddly lucky, because we grew up in the transition of that. So we were like went through the growing pains as we grew up. Like,
and we got to have unplugged childhoods.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, we meet a lot of parents that are like, have like 15 or 16-year-old kids that monitor what they do, like on their tablets or like whatever their devices are, and they can see what they're doing. Which, if I was 14 and you saw what I was doing, like it would be, like unsettling, I think, to say the least. But I mean, like,
oh sure, yeah.
I mean, you're just like, every thought that pops into your head, like, like, what is this? What is this? What is this? What is this? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like you need a bit of that. And like, you need to be like, oh, this is fucking weird. Like, you need to.
You mean like you need to have the privacy and autonomy as a growing person to be able to do that without adults knowing about it?
Well, I think you look back at it and you like cringe. You kind of need that. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, like, I just think it's part of growing up. You just like are curious endlessly, like, and if you're like in a box, like, it's, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but I don't know. I mean, like,
hey man, I mean, modern times.
I mean, you don't want like your kids to be looking up like at a shooting up a school or something like that. I mean, like, that would be very, very concerning.
Yeah, but I don't get not. Like, I've been seeing this wave of these parents that are doing this, right? That are controlling their kids' devices, and like waiting way too long to it's like as soon as the internet became a thing, I don't know how parents weren't like, okay, we need to have all these conversations now. Like whether it's the birds and the bees or horrible. It's like you don't want to expose your child to things they don't need to be exposed to that can affect their development. But like, especially now, like if these kids want to learn about something, it's at the touch of it's at their fingertips. Like you either control that flow of information by being the source of it, or you let the kid figure it out themselves. But you like don't deprive them of that, because that's how you end up with a generation of children that don't know how to be people, and that's bad news bears.
Well, yeah, and I think too with that overbearing kind of thing, like you kind of like create this like eerie paranoia, like as you get older, like everybody's watching you all the time, everything you do, and like I mean that might be true, but I mean like that's one of my favorite Nirvana like lyrics of all time, where he's like, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you. I think is what it is.
Yeah. That takes us back to our previous one guy seen it with Prime. Remember, he's like, just because they're at the gas station, he's like, you know, are you paranoid because you're paranoid, or are you paranoid because what's better, being paranoid or knowing you have a reason to be paranoid? It's a common theme here.
I just feel bad for kids growing up now. I feel like it's a lot harder than when we were kids. I feel like
I think every generation feels that way.
Yeah, I just feel like it was really simple when we were growing up. You know, you just kind of like, you know, like you scrape your knee and you figure it out kind of thing. And now it's just like everything you do is so monitored and like helicoptered over. It just seems awful. Like I don't want to be a parent now.
Which is what pisses me off about these people that bitch like on Reddit, like, oh, like these kids these days have it so easy, like they have no idea.
No, they don't.
It's like going back to that fucking John Adams quote from earlier, like that's the point. Like we're innovating and living lives to make the lives of future generations easier. Like what are you complaining about? Like what? That's the goal.
Yeah. Well, you know, I love that. You remember that Bo Burnham special, Inside, the one he made during COVID?
Yeah, it was awesome.
He has a great song in the middle, Welcome to the Internet, where he basically explains what the internet is.
Yeah, it's a banger. Yeah.
And it's just like, what's that line in it? He's like, apathy is a tragedy and boredom is a crime. Anything and everything all of the time. Like that sums it up perfectly. Like in like 2 lines, like that's what it is, and like
I think that song is gonna be for sure. I think that song is gonna be a lot more. I think that in like internet history, I think that album, that whole album, but like that song is gonna become a very important piece of internet history. It's just brilliant. A step back observation, because it's so easy to just get lost in the world that we've built, that's just this house of sand, and for somebody to just somebody with a platform like him to sort of like step back and just objectively look at everything as a whole, somebody who is such a huge, like his popularity and success is such a direct result of the internet, like interesting shit.
And to have the foresight to be like, this is what's created me, but it's also what's destroying mankind potentially. And I think it's like, it's similar to what Charlie Chaplin was doing in Modern Times. He was basically commenting on the same thing.
Modern Times.
Way to bring it all back around. Fuck yeah.
That's how we do it, man. Fucking
another beautiful
circle.
bow on top of that bow.
Fuck, that's a bigger bow. A more a bow packed with profundity.
If we just keep talking, we'll do bows on bows.
Bows on bows on bows. No, I have to fucking do shit. I love you. This is One Guy's Seen It. We'll be back next week with some bullshit terrible movie that I've seen.
No, I can't wait.
You guys
it's spooky month. It's got to be a horror movie.
Oh, you know it will be. You know it will be. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
I'm drunk.
One guy's seen it, the other guy hasn't. First guy's gonna tell the second guy all about it. while they both get drunk.